Kayte Lewis from Voice Lawyers, and this is Voice in the Crowd, the podcast for people, not lawyers. It's about demystifying the law, speaking in plain English, and sharing practical insights into how the legal system really works in everyday life. Each episode draws on real stories and experiences, the good, the bad, and the confusing. If you feel overwhelmed or confused by the law, or you're just interested in our stories, this podcast is for you. Voice in the Crowd, where the law meets real people. Welcome back to Voice in the Crowd. Today, our guest is Kristina Granberg. Kristina is the co-founder of Women in Numbers, which is a not-for-profit organisation co-founded by Kristina in 2025. It's a member-led, product-neutral initiative helping women build confidence to participate in investing and making financial decisions through gaining knowledge, connection and action. Their mission is to transform the financial futures of Australian women. So tell us a bit more about Women in Numbers and why you started it.
Yes, I would. Thank you very much for having me, by the way. I really enjoyed this. So the reason why Women in Numbers exists is because I kept seeing the same pattern. So I meet these really successful women and they would be, doing well in their careers and they'd be leading teams and businesses and raising families and, making big decisions in all parts of their lives. But then when it came to money, it kind of seemed to be in a different, segment or category and was a little bit more intimidating or taboo or, just conversations around that weren't opening up as often. So I think it made me realize that it's not that women aren't capable or ambitious when it comes to wealth. It's more around access. So, access to the right conversations and having access to those, you need to have access to, trusted advisors or trusted network around you. And also just access to spaces that you feel comfortable asking questions. Because, they can be very personal questions when you're doing things around,
It's money, sex, religion.
Yeah.
All very personal questions.
Exactly. So, if you don't have all those things, you can see why it becomes a hard topic to kind of talk about. So that's why Women Exist. It's not just about education, although, yes, education is a very large part of it, but it's more around opening doors, providing the space. And what I've seen is that when you do this thing, create this environment or, women are in this environment, they do feel comfortable, things change very quickly. They're asking, they're having more conversations, they're asking more questions. And I think that's the momentum that, the dial shifts. So,
Okay. So I guess we're talking about information and education is a part of it. It's not that we're not educated though, is it?
no.
I mean, women are the most highly educated in Australia. We're just as educated as the boys, if not more so. So obviously that's not the issue. So why is it then that, can you say that women lack confidence around money?
I think, yeah, I totally agree. Information is not the issue. And there is so much access to so much information. Yeah, everything's at our fingertips at the moment. So I think it is, but information alone doesn't kind of change outcomes. Like action changes outcomes. And I think that's the blocker. So knowledge isn't the blocker.
It seems to be that it's not just the information, it's the taking action on the information. That's the difference. Is it perhaps a gender difference? Men will take action. Women tend to just keep gathering information. Is that the observation that you had?
Yeah. Well, I think many of us have had that kind of, observation in our lifetimes. But so it's more around how do we take all this knowledge and turn it into action? And it's often not found in a podcast or a degree or, it's found in often having a conversation with someone relevant to, this topic that can translate all that knowledge into a way to help you make decisions, if that makes sense.
So it's sort of like somebody saying, oh, well, I guess it's down the pub type conversations, so, I invested in this the other day. And so I've done these things. And they're the conversations perhaps that that as women we don't really have. We
Exactly.
tend to not talk about them,
Exactly.
about what we're actually doing for, whatever reason. I mean, is it embarrassment? Is it, well, what is it?
Yeah, it's a lack of confidence, or this it goes back to that safe space. Okay, is it something that I'm going to be judged for because I don't know? You know how we often want to know everything so that we can ask the questions.
Yeah, I know. I remember sitting at school going, oh, if I ask that question, is that a stupid question? And not being sure whether it's a stupid question or not.
Exactly, exactly. And at the pub or investing, it doesn't even need to be that specific around investing. It could just be, I've been there, or this is what helped me in that situation, or I've got the perfect contact for you. That's a great one. I've used that a lot since creating Win. Those are the types of things that changes knowledge into
Interaction.
action. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess what I'm hearing is that you're saying that there's conversations that perhaps women just simply aren't having outside of these type of networking situations. Is that right?
Yeah, so what I've observed is the biggest, conversations that women should be having but aren't usually tied to a specific topic. They're often conversations that we don't even know that we need to have. So
Right.
yeah, so when if you think about financial education, often there's this assumption that you've kind of identified a knowledge gap and you go out to read to fill it. But and what I've seen from the one community, that's not always the case, and that
So sort of, I guess, people are kind of, because other people are talking about it, they're then looking at what, I don't have that. I think you were saying before something like you realized after doing this that you didn't have a will.
yes, yes,
I mean,
yes,
that's it. That's a great example of, it's like, oh, I really should probably have one of those. 'Cause,
yeah,
in conversation, and similarly, I know I've had that moment of going, oh, I really do need someone to look at my insurances. When I've been at some of at your events, it's like, yeah, that would be something I should probably look at too. And it's just because of that, everyone is actually talking about that and they're open about it because they feel that they're in a safe space.
exactly. And I think the will, I might explain the will because it's actually a good example and for two things that we've just talked about. So, we was at a Win event, and afterwards, so it wasn't actually about the event. It was just chatting to a couple of women after the event had finished, and one of them was kind of passionately talking about that people have false assumptions about what happens after your spouse dies, and she was saying, oh, there are people out there that have houses and they don't have a will, and there are people that have children and don't have a will. And I understand, and they go, oh, I have a house and a child, and I don't have a will. And so I didn't wake up that morning thinking, oh, I need to have. I'm thinking about will. It just wasn't in my field of vision. It was only
Right.
having those conversations, that changed it. But also, what was very interesting, when it relates to another points, is there was three of us in this conversation, and the other person, Pakira, said, I know exactly the contact you need.
Yes.
I'll introduce you tomorrow," which she did. So I think, yes, one person brought it into my awareness, but it could have gone into the big long list of very important things I need to do, like year tag. But then the other person has gone, landed it and turned it into an action by, introducing me
Yeah.
to their contact. So
And then you're going to have to see that person next time you see them. Did you contact them about the will? Oh,
No.
so you've got to do it.
Yes, exactly.
Look, I think that's a really great example. And obviously, wills are important to us here. We do wills here, and it's a, I could tell you lots of stories that don't go so well when people don't have a will.
Yeah.
And people just have no idea. But it's similar. I mean, that's just across the board of all of the financial planning type, not compliance so much, but actually having all of those plans in place and having, an investment plan and having a retirement plan and oh, and a dying plan, which is really awful. Like often people go, they've got children. Well, who's going to look after the kids? Oh, I haven't really thought about it. It's like, well, these things unfortunately can happen, and do happen often without notice. So it's really important to have them in place, and certainly finances. I mean, we're always helping. We don't only work for women, obviously, but we have a lot of female clients, and it's really troubling the amount of women that come in and don't really understand their financial position, either don't have access to things or often did, but in the relationship context, let it go and just go, well, someone else is looking after that. And that's kind of okay for a little while. But, 10, 15 years in, you're quite out of touch.
Mm.
And I had somebody just yesterday say, oh, I'm just really embarrassed. I'm really embarrassed that this has happened to me. But that's how most people feel. And it's not that you've done anything wrong. It's just,
Life's messy.
life gets in the way, and you start doing things and you allocate off roles, but then it's not till you have a crisis, like somebody passes away or, you go through a divorce or separation, that suddenly these things come flooding back at you and you realize that you've either let go of the wheel and you don't know where you're at. Or maybe it's a health crisis, like a really bad health crisis. So, but it's often some kind of crisis that brings not just women, but we're particularly looking at women, to that point of going, oh dear, where am I now?
Yeah. And you hear it so often, and it is always after it's happened. So naturally, the conversation then becomes, well, how do you prepare in advance? But that's still really hard too. Like this is the intersection of trust and finance and and money.
And then it becomes a crisis talk, rather than I'm prepared. Yes, I can deal with this. And of course, there'd still be the difficulty of the crisis. But if you've got some plans in place, you've got some awareness in place, it's not nearly as difficult, I guess.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. I recently made myself the guinea pig because we're talking about, well, why not be prepared in advance? And I went to my husband, who I love dearly, just for the record. I was like, we need to make a plan in place in case we have a divorce. And as you can imagine, went down like a red balloon, and I just had no tact. So I'm still working on the answer of once you're in a relationship, how you can kind of work with your loving partner.
That's a really interesting one, because people often will approach us and say they want a binding financial agreement or a prenup. And one of the biggest issues that comes up in the course of that is actually the communication piece between the couple. Sure, we can give you a binding financial agreement, but that doesn't help you still having to have those conversations about what you want it to say. And obviously the really big piece is financial disclosure in preparing those documents. I mean, they're really useful documents. They can be great, and they can really give everybody a lot of peace of mind. But if you're approaching it with the idea that, I don't want to tell the other person about this, it's a red flag from the start. You've really got a problem. So that's always a really interesting piece. But it does sort of bring a lot of those things to the forefront. I mean, obviously I can't tell you who the client is, but I mean, we've got a client now who we've drafted it. It's all there, but she just can't bring herself to give us the email address of the partner to send it to.
Oh.
So it's all done.
Yeah.
So obviously he hasn't been able to have the conversation, and we've been waiting some time now for her to come to that. But what it does show is that the hurdle of having these conversations proposes for people.
Yeah,
and I guess it's a confidence thing. And if you can't have that during the relationship, then you can imagine at the end of a relationship, which is why, we could sometimes have some quite horrendous situations for people. Because those conversations and training yourself to have those conversations is really important.
Yeah.
What I think's really interesting is, and obviously, full disclosure, I have attended several Women in Numbers events, and I think they're great, and I think everybody should come. But there's a lot of younger people there,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of younger women there,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is really exciting.
Yes, we when we first set it up, we had our launch gala, and it was a mother-daughter gala because it was not, we really wanted to ensure that the conversations are actually happening between generations. And I mean, I know there's a lot of emphasis on the, intergenerational wealth transfer, and
Yes.
that women are set to get the lion's share, but it needs to. I'm mostly focused on this conversation piece, like how, if we want women at our age having conversation and normalizing it and people participating more, you know, often the people have talked about, well, I never grew up that way. That's not how my family,
That's not how we do things.
Exactly. So
yeah.
trying to change that dial as well. So there are a lot of younger people that have come into WIN through that mother-daughter gala, but then that's just expanded. But they're so thirsty for knowledge, and and they're bringing their friends and their advocates. And I think one has been coming to your events as well, and
Yeah. We love her.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just, for the people that are listening, not everybody will be aware of the trillions of dollars, which is the intergenerational wealth transfer. And I think it's 11 trillion. Is that the Australian figure or is that the US figure? Can't remember that. It's basically the biggest wealth transfer in history is, well, it's already kind of, it's started.
Yes.
And for the first time in history, the majority of that is landing within the control of women. So I think it's 60%. Yeah, it's about 2/3. 2/3 of that money is actually going to fall in the hands of women. And so it is already reshaping the way the whole investment market is sort of going. I mean, it was interesting looking at how it's changing the art investment market, because women will make decisions in a different way to men. And I think that's something that you've certainly looked at through WIN as well, is that women have a different way of looking at money and the future and prioritizing different things, which of course is changing the markets for everybody, not just women. And I think that's something that's really fascinating and exciting too.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you've particularly seen?
Yes, I have seen, because as well as this transfer, we're also seeing women millionaires growing at almost twice the rate of men. So there is this, the economic influence is clearly there, but what's happening alongside it is what I find interesting, and to be honest, a little bit concerning, because the confidence levels are not growing at the same pace as the opportunity. So, financial literacy is going down, particularly among women, and especially young women. And distrust in financial service providers is, growing in terms of, do they have, there's a growing kind of distrust in financial service providers in terms of whether or not they, have the best intentions at heart when it comes to women. And even there are lapsed investors, a portion of female investors who are lapsed investors in a certain term, as in they used to invest, but now they don't. Even that is going up, which is interesting because over the same period, male lapsed investors will go down. So we're going in opposite directions. So it's just this very, interesting tension between an increase in financial opportunity and a decrease in confidence at the same time. So, I'm sorry, that is very depressing. What I'm just saying, but it's one of the very key reasons why I started Women in Numbers. So I'm very passionate about it. So that's it. I think that's the problem. That was the only problem that I was trying to solve, was how do we stop this from happening? And I think it is about access and being heard and having these conversations and doing things a little bit differently because we are women, and it's the historically the industry hasn't been set up for us. So why don't we create our own infrastructure around it to work for us as well?
I'll come back to the infrastructure comment, but I know one of the things that was interesting, which is like a really practical outworking of this change that came out of, I think, the UBS and Art Basel report, was that there's an increased demand for female artists because women are particularly interested in investing in female artists. I mean, we're just talking about one minuscule little effect of this transfer of wealth going to women, but that has changed that market. So, and I think
So the artists are bringing out lots more content because females like to really understand all the stories behind the artists.
and that the way in which women like to buy art is different. They like to meet the artist. They like to get to know the artist, and that's something that's quite different. If you kind of extrapolate that out over across these trillions of dollars, you can see we're really looking at some pretty major changes.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a little bit sad that you said that financial literacy is going down. You might, we've actually done a podcast with another one of our friends, Louise Chu, and she's particularly talked about financial literacy and women's financial literacy, even in Australia, being below the international standard, which is just horrifying because you go, well, how can we be so educated, we've got masters and PhDs and degrees and we've got all of these things and yet not have like the basics of what is considered financial literacy. I mean, I had one example, one of my daughters had a friend and I don't think they're allowed to do it now. The Commonwealth, they were giving out credit cards to everybody when they turned 18. I don't know. At some point she got one of these and went, oh, someone's given me $1,000. And at the end of year 12, she had no idea that money had to be paid back. Like just no idea.
No.
Which is a bit really concerning. But I think I know my own daughter's school, they're bringing in financial literacy and I think it's year 9.
Oh, great. Yes.
As a
course. From the Anglo, say that's just not part of the curriculum at all. And I wish it was, but yes.
Yeah. So I think there's a few groups that are sort of looking at moving that out through, schools en masse, which is great. But yeah, it's an interesting time in that we're about to get all of this money, or it's already started. And then, and I guess for people, if you not understand, I mean, you can just search it up. It'll tell you why, but it's about the transfer of inheritances and, even in divorces where women are just getting so much more access to money. And
eldest daughter effect.
That's it. The eldest daughter effect now gets the control of the money, whereas it used to go to the eldest son. Would get the money and they sort of work it out. Now it goes to the eldest daughter to make those decisions. So some really big sort of cultural changes.
And it's been happening for, I'm going to be depressing again, but don't worry. There's a nice ending to this, but I've known about it for a long time. BCG did a report in 2020. No, sorry, 2000s, like 20 years ago, basically, almost, about this kind of change and how more money is getting into the hands of women, but it also at that time married that to the underrepresentation of women in terms of being financial advisors in the market, which was around 18 to 23% back then. And then you fast forward to now, and we've been talking about this now for 20, 30 years. The percentage of female advisors in the market is 21. So that we've known, and the financial industry is just kind of not changing at the pace of that what's actually occurring in real life.
I mean, why is that? Why are there not more women just pushing ahead in that area? What is which I guess brings me back to what I said I wanted to come back to. So you mentioned before that there's a structural issue with the finance industry, and that we've known for 20 years that there needs to be more female advisors, and that there hasn't really been a change in the percentage of male to female advisors. So what is your observation about that? We've got more women looking for advice. We kind of know intrinsically that they tend to want to go to women, or they trust women more easily, perhaps is a better way of saying it. So what's the structural issue that you're referring to?
I guess change is slow, but there is a lot of change going on, but just not in the traditional sense. And that what I've been seeing, and it's really come to the forefront in the last few years, is there was, individual females who all have quite similar intentions of going, this isn't fair. I don't want my daughter to be raised, this, and, I'm going to do what's in my power to kind of, help change this. And so, you see these female-led businesses popping up, and initiatives and networking groups and education platforms all across the financial ecosystem. But what's happening even further is, these individuals are becoming small groups, and now there's small groups that are all connecting together. So we're almost kind of creating our own infrastructure, that to instead of trying to retrofit ourselves into something that wasn't made for us.
So it's more like this organic evolution of a female financial institution that's growing alongside.
I think,
Because,
it's exciting. So
For whatever reason, women haven't sort of gone into the traditional financial sector. And look, I know that
it's not made for us, so we're kind of creating our own.
I know that to be true from some of my own experiences. I mean, look, in law, it's very even. And I went along to some other groups, and I found it. Became a part of a different group, and my observation, they said, "Oh, how did you like it?" I went, "Oh, it's very blokey," which is fine. But, after a little while, it did become hard to sort of break in, and you felt like you were on the edges. And I'm sure they didn't intend for that to be the case. But at the end of the day, I mean, I was paying quite a lot of money to be part of this group. And in the end, I was like, oh, why would I pay money for this? But I made a few comments along the way. And some of the other women that were in that went, oh, yeah, but Kate, you're in law and you guys have a different sort of industry. Most of the people in this group are in finance. And this is just how it is. And so, I mean, I walked with my feet. I was like, oh, why would I pay for that? So, and then I came to Women in Numbers.
Yeah, there you go.
So there you go. So I'm an example
you
of
out
that.
the outskirts there, I bet.
No, I haven't found that to be the case at all.
Yeah, and again, I mean, the creation of Women in Numbers, it kind of was built over several years and many different conversations and anecdotes and and questions. But one relates quite well to what you're talking about. Is there was someone who kind of heads up a family office, and she'd go to all these financial industry events, and they'd be all men apart from her, and it would always be that the seat next to her was free, and
Did you want to sit next to her?
No, and the conversation changed. Just like women typically like talking to women, it's to say, same thing. So she just stopped going, and I just thought that in of itself not going makes the problem worse, isn't it? So
I guess that becomes part of the problem. And then I look at I could give countless examples of when you go in to do something, and everybody wants to talk to I'm married, and it's like I want to talk to my husband. He's like, she's the one that owns the company. It's not me. And despite him sort of referring people to me, they will still talk to him. And it's like, in the end, you just go, oh, please. One time he actually took the pram, took the child and left. And then they wouldn't talk to me until he came.
Oh my goodness.
Needless to say, they did not get our business. So there are these bizarre things that happen. And I think they're not particularly well ventilated, and everybody feels like it must just be happening to them. But it is very strange to that's how it's been.
But I guess it relates back to how often you hear, oh, we just didn't talk about money in our family, or females didn't. I mean, that it's the same thing but happening for men, and it did, so these are sort of cultural things. They take time to change, don't they?
And so how do we best set ourselves up financially in relationships from what you've seen?
Well, I mean, I'm a bit conscious to answer this, given this is what you see and set up on your in your everyday. But what I think the main thing is communication, isn't it? And I think also it's about, you don't know what's going to happen in life and what life is going to throw you at every single phase. So having communication, yes, with your partner, but also having a trusted tribe around you that can help navigate any kind of, messy situation, because life is messy, or connect you with, who they know. I think is really important too. I think, yeah. What do you think?
I think that's really important because I know that we're told that generally speaking, women will always look for a personal recommendation when they're looking for a family lawyer. So they need to have heard about you from several different places. And I think that that's the same with finances, and that's a very female thing. You want that sort of assurance that other people have tried you. How did they go? And then before you actually take any of those steps. So it totally makes sense that they need to be talking. And if you're in isolation, it's really hard to move forward, which I think brings us back to the first question that we sort of went through, which is, why do we have all this information? Because we can get it. We've all got our computers and we've all got, the internet, so we can get any information we want. But what's the difference between that and actually taking that next step?
Yeah.
And it's often because women are very relational. It's like, oh, what did you do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a human relationship element that translates knowledge into action and making decisions.
Because it just underpins that confidence that you've got someone else that has done it or has tried it and can recommend it. But then I guess, so given that a lot of what WIN does is educational, what is it that women are most interested in learning about now?
Everything. We have really great member data, so we've got a kind of clear lens of what people are looking at and interested in. One kind of interesting insight is from our business owners and founders, which actually takes up a very large portion of the community, and it's quite interesting because they're not just thinking about how can I make my business bigger. They're actually thinking quite strategically about, what to do around it and, and for it. So what I mean by that is, the topics that they're most interested in are things like tax, efficiencies and portfolio construction and property investing and superannuation. So it kind of signals to me that they're not just thinking about how do I make more money. It's how do I make smart decisions and use my income and my, the equitable value of what I'm building now, as I'm building it, so that, it lasts. I get to keep it and I'm making the most out of it. So it was quite interesting.
So I guess they're quite big questions. There's a lot of big questions there. Yeah. So what if anybody that is listening wants to join Women in Numbers? Where is it? Is it Sydney, Melbourne?
Right now it's just in Sydney. I've started working on some things in the background for Melbourne and then at Brisbane. Hopefully we'll slowly but surely. But yes, mostly in Sydney at the moment. There are people who fly up to events from Melbourne though, and that the network part is a very important part of it. And in fact, you were talking about education before, and what I find is that the events that we do are the hook. They're the things that bring people in because everyone wants to know more. But it's actually the people that you meet once you're there that are the most important, and that what people have got the most value out of. As I was saying, there's so many founders in this membership, but there's so many who are now working together in business capacity, like an incredible amount. I love hearing those stories. So I think there's a lot of value in that, as well as the actual education component of it. I didn't answer your question today.
Well, no, it was if people are going, oh my gosh, how do I become a part of this?
Yes.
How do they do that?
And you go to womeninnumbers.network. So it's free membership. And you just enter your details saying you want to become a member. We ask, and this is where we get the member data from, any new members to fill out an onboarding survey, and that's just so that we get to know a little bit more about them, where they are on their, financial journey. What are they prioritizing? Are they, budgeting to buy their first house, or are they thinking about a successful exit, or whatever it is? And then we also ask lots of different topics, as we've kind of talked about before, and what each member is interested. And that's why I laughed when I was like, they want to know everything, because 19 out of 20 times it comes back of, yes, tell me Teach
Tell
me
me
all.
everything.
No.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's really great. So just it wasn't free though, was it? So that's only something that's happened in its second year where you've been able to open it up
Yes.
to everybody as a free
Yes.
network to join.
Yes. I just thought if I'm trying to make these conversations normalized and, like, so it's not extraordinary, it's just ordinary that we're having these conversations, I needed to remove any friction of, access to these groups. So it also, because we're young, like now that we're getting to a kind of critical mass, probably wrong word to talk about humans, but it's allowing us more ability to group people in a way that they are at the same financial confidence or knowledge and they are interested in the same topic. So by making memberships free, that kind of, it sped up, accelerated that whole process.
Yeah. So for any women that are interested, women in numbers network.
Tell your friends.
Well, thank you, Kristina.
Yes, thank you
And
very much.
I look forward to the next WIN event.
Excellent. Thank you, Kate. Thanks.
Just before you leave, I have a quick but important note. What we've discussed in this podcast is general information only. It's not legal advice and it's not a substitute for getting advice tailored to your specific situation. The law, and family law and employment law particularly, are highly fact specific. Small details can make a big difference. So if something we talked about resonates with you, we encourage you to get proper advice before taking any action. Nothing in this podcast creates a lawyer-client relationship, but we're always happy to point you in the right direction. If there is something you'd like us to discuss, please reach out and let us know, and I hope you tune in next time.